get a job, Spicoli.
What for?
You need money.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. And now it's time for that feral hippie herself, an infotartic, esoteric, eclectic mix of the adventures of that feral hippie, Miss Mona Radler.
What are you people? On dope?
That was my skull! I'm so wasted!
Make a move and the bunny gets it.
Dave's not here.
All right, Mona, it's all yours. Take it away.
Do. Oh, it's Monday, January 25th, 2016. And you know what? We need more money. Just like that said, well, okay, we might not. Barter and trade's pretty cool, but we got to pay the bills here. So if you'd like to keep these shows a-going, get your heinies to that donate button right now. Oh, gracious. And the homepage is pretty cool, freedomslips.com. It's got all kinds of resources to help at least try to process anything that might occur, cosmically or energetically or even third dimensional wise. And that's one reason why I'm happy to have my guest today, Mr. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Because I want to know, hey, did he get to see any of that tsunami that came your way? Sir?
What are you? Oh, you're introducing me. I was still waiting. Hi.
Yeah, I am. You want to share?
What are we talking about now? Exactly.
Well, I know that you're up on the West Coast there, and last week was that tiny little tsunami, but we just had a 5-planet alignment that created that 7.1 in Alaska.
Is that what caused that?
I really think that was part of the tickle, yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Okay.
Well,
I should get a grip, right?
That's causing havoc. You know, that Planet 9 that they're talking about. I did a show last night. I have some friends in JPL, old people I'd gone to high school with and then college and so on. They're still working out of JPL. And so I have some insider kinds of insights sometimes on what is and is not really going on. And even with all of that, I know I don't know, and I probably will really never know. Because that's how convoluted it is. This X-Files show that showed last night on Fox, said it all. It left some very disturbing questions unanswered, and it is, of course, what Hollywood is doing now is that they have a large group of lurkers on the internet looking at conspiracy theories for Chris Carter. And what he'll do then is integrate the current chatter on the internet, kind of like Cliff High does, and then come out with a storyboard that will grab your socks. And this latest one, if you go to my website, docram.com, that's my Facebook post. I have on those, I do 5 to 10 posts a day, and I have a thing called the Daily Doc that you can subscribe to. Cheap, it's inexpensive, it's nothing actually for anybody that does my GoFundMe account. And it comes out twice a day of all the different posts that I might do in a 24-hour period. And I've tried to stay current on what's going on, and it's overwhelming, even for someone like me. I mean, there is so much disinformation. The current chatter in Burns, Oregon is bad. Whether or not Hillary Clinton is involved with the uranium that is there on the ground, there is one thing that is certain. In both Burns, Oregon, and Bundy Ranch, we're all about BLM giving our natural resources to China as part of our national debt problems. And that is happening. And today, the FBI has mobilized, oh, Jesus. The hospitals have been notified to increase blood plasma. They have now brought in a helicopter for people that might be hurt because there is or will, it appears to be, armed confrontation is about to happen, kind of like Waco, Texas. And it's unfortunate because the Oath Keepers and militias have all been infiltrated. It is, how did the Paiute put it to Aaron Bundy? Get in line. You know, the property doesn't belong to the whites. The citizens that live there. It belongs to the Indians. Newsflash. And it was the federal government which has never kept a promise that it's made to anybody, especially Indians, much less Europe or China or Iran. None of it. We're the worst bullies in the world. And it makes me embarrassed to be part of, as I could say, as Navy intel and part of the Navy SEAL units, this is no longer the country I served in protecting. And I won't participate. I'll just be a Quaker and sit there and quake. I'm not going to participate. Well, that's it.
I don't think you're going to quake, though, darling, at all.
Well, it's wrong. It's wrong by any standards. And when the X-Files thing came out last night and laid it out on, the big plot with aliens and the elite working with breakaway technology for 70 years, and now they're going to use it to take over the world as a prison planet, is pretty dead on. And you can see it from across the board. And right now, just here locally, where I live in Grants Pass, Oregon, all the trees are dying from the barium and aluminum, which does not appear in nature naturally, and yet is in everything now. So how does that work? And I don't have answers. I, can try to look for solutions because I can fearmonger. That's easy. It's creepy out there. But what do you do as an individual right now to, begin that process of, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That kind of place. What are you going to do?
Well, you can't hide anymore because they have too much technology that can locate a gnat's ass. You know what I mean?
Well, they're using gnat's asses fly on the walls to surveil. I mean, that technology exists now, little cockroaches. And actually, it's even worse than that. With Jade Point 2.0 software, they are able to accurately profile you so accurately. They know exactly what you're going to do 28 minutes before you do. They are actually using that Jade 2.0 software to predict crimes in New York City before they occur. And this is the end of days. And Minority Report aside, we are now to a place where if we do not take personal responsibility for our own evolution, mankind is terminated. I am optimistic. I'm actually, with people like Zen Gardner and others that say they're already on the run, he's right. We are, all of us, waking up. And that's why the movie There Will Be Blood is like real. They can't control us. They're turning us into laptops, bio APIs. I can drop the names. I can tell you the technology. The whole thing is about too many people in the world, and how do we get it down to manageable levels that we can then come in with advanced technology and just rule. That is what you're up against today.
Yep. Hunger Games.
Okay, so that's I don't know about that part, but yeah.
But we are. If your trees are dying out there and everything,
they're dying from aluminum. They're rotting at the root and breaking down. We had a wind through here, and a bunch of trees blew down, and they snapped right at the ground level because the roots are dead, or dying and brittle. You're seeing the white molds growing up the tree now and everything. They will only do that in weakened trees. And here we are with aluminum and barium. Right now, the geoengineering, I have identified 28 different kinds of aerosols that they've used so far.
Jesus.
And they did another one 3 months ago up in Reedsport, my handler asked me to go in there and do blood panels on some people to look for lithium levels, toxic levels of lithium. They used lithium on Reedsport as an experiment to see if they could lock down a city that was in unrest because, I don't know, they can't deliver water because the grid's down and everybody goes in revolt. The media is controlling everything now to the point where they can make behavior like the storm on the East Coast going on right now, where the stores look like there was a disaster that hit there.
Right.
Hasn't yet, but people panic thinking there is, and they act just like lemmings, and they don't get it. So what does one do to prep yourself? Well, I would find your answers are actually inside yourself. You already know how you feel about certain things.
Right.
What you need to do is get a dialogue going with yourself via journaling or some other technique. Some people use paintings. They use artwork as a way to express inner feelings as a dialogue. It's not meant to share, but a way or process of communication. Each of us is different, and we need to do that now. And at the same time, there will always be a physical analog or metaphor. That means water. Water is going to be the primary first thing that actually wipes out everybody. The two primary diseases are going to be exhaustion and fatigue and dehydration. Those are where you start with any disaster is your water's wrong. And right now with the geoengineering, everybody's body is microdehydrated. That means you literally need more water than you think you do.
Well, is there some kind of electrolyte or something that can reverse that kind of condition?
Yes, I'm taking turmeric and modifilin, an extract from brown algae. They will go in and bioremediate toxic levels of heavy metals in your
Cool.
body. Well, it's one place to start, is your diet and the water that you choose to drink. Now, Flint and now Detroit, I just posted that, the water is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to happen more and more every day now as municipalities are going to be failing in one area or another in their services to the community.
Right.
And at some point, people are going to get angry. They're going to do like this new movie that I just saw on Netflix called Inside the Cartel. That's an excellent, where it shows two militias, one in Mexico in Michoacan and the other down in Arizona, that are running border patrols to try to stamp out the cartel. And how do you do that when the government is in bed with the cartels?
Yeah, right.
Well, it's a good movie. It's actual, individuals that the guy that started the militia down in Michoacan with the auto defenders is in prison right now. And while it's all political and it's all about money, which is about to hit a brick wall. Money itself, money is to most extent a theatrical prop. It's not real. What's real is labor. And China is now in a world of hurt. And now there is a big move toward the yuan over the petrodollar. And when that happens, the banks are going to start in default. And guess what? That is one of the themes in the most recent X-File.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been around for a while, though, Well,
I think it'll be this year.
I don't doubt that at all.
And here we are.
April doesn't look real fun.
No, it's going to, it's about electronic money as opposed to cash in your pocket.
Right.
That kind of thing. And so you need to rethink why you're doing what you're doing in terms of retirement, IRAs, and the rest of it. I can tell you that Social Security is going to be one of the first things that starts getting clipped right now. and Medicare is next. And so here we are at the end of days. And what are you going to, what's in your, oh yeah, how do they put it? What's in your wallet?
Well, and I would even suggest that if, since the litigations of the time frame, that if you have to really think personally of yourself and not these material, supposedly earned valued things like homes and that, use the money in a better way. Prepare for changes and stop paying your mortgage.
I'm going to recommend that this week, I did this last time I was on your show, I'm going to reiterate it, that this week, your project is to make certain that you have at least 3 days of water in your home, stashed away for every single person and animal in your household, and then also have a replacement plan the first day. And once you've done that, then you need an emergency plan for if there is a sudden no engines, automobile engines work from an ELF spike, or the grid collapses because of electricity and the capacitance from a CME or something of that nature, and your wife or husband is at the other end of town and there's no way to communicate, there's no way to go drive and say, what is your plan when communications are down? And you need to have that action plan with your children. There it is.
And
Because
when to travel.
You'll be missing relatives and looking for them when in fact you need to be concerned with the hunker down modes of defending your little bunker, whatever that is, from a house, your family, and your neighbors, your local neighbors.
So really be aware of your surroundings and what's going on and who it is that you would allow or not. That's
Matt
rather
Stein,
interesting.
Matt Stein and I are going to do March 18th, 19th, and 20th. We're doing a 3-day urban survival skill workshop in Hollywood. The city of Hollywood is sponsoring it. They are going to have the first day Friday open to the public for an 8-hour open to the public, and then Saturday and Sunday will be for a normal workshop, $45, and there will be screenings on Friday night and Saturday night on Petrea Patrick's 2 movies, Dark Start and Offline, which include Matt Stein and Congressman, and talking about the Santa Barbara grid and how it went down and what happened next and how nobody is prepared.
Right.
And this is going to be at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. So they're expecting, 600 or 700 people there at this event, because I, for example, will not charge for anybody that shows up who cannot afford to take the workshop. They're going to be welcome as my guests. That is, it's not about money. I need money. We all need money. How did George Carlin put it? God has everything, but he needs more money.
Right.
There's your church for you. That part is fellowship. That's what a church is supposed to do for you. Is bring, like-minded belief systems together to help you reinforce your own commitment to your values.
Right.
But the church isn't doing that kind of thing.
No.
It's all about charismatics and passing the plate around. And they spend a lot of time doing that, when in fact the bunker, that church bunker, whatever you want to call that, is where you choose to be when shit hits the fan, because it's going to hit the fan and you're going to need to have some say on who you're in the bunker with.
Right. And well, like you said, if it's just one little thing like snow, okay, like the Northeast doesn't know about snow, that they're stripping the shelves off, and I've seen that in Florida too, but if you aren't just consciously already prepared, there's nothing I'm going to do to help, except like you're saying, give provisions of how we can do this, simple plans. And if
Legal extortion, yeah. That's the other part of what's happening here with Agenda 21 and taking away our civil rights slowly, firmly, and consistently. And at some point, you're going to have to draw a line on what you will not go beyond. And for me, I will not participate in, I'm 72, so it won't matter, but I will not participate in any kind of war, going out trying to kill someone I don't even know.
Right, me neither. Or
Well,
that insect either.
Yeah, but there's a whole group of kids
No.
that have gone through Common Core and don't have any kind of sense of family. There are 2 generations now without a
Isn't that
family.
sad?
What are they going to do?
I know, they're going to attack. They're going to
Well,
do what they were
they're
told to
watching
do.
Yeah, your children are watching you to see how you did it,
Mhm.
including pedophilia, gambling, spousal abuse,
Right.
drugs, drug addiction. That's how they learn how to do it. They're watching you do it. And so you have like a fiduciary type of responsibility, walking your talk.
Right.
And the lying, the fibbing, lying by omission, whatever, all of that is internal landscape stuff. That is where we all need to start working,
Right.
is what's going on. And it differs for each of us. That part is what I call God's will. And the thing I hate or dislike
Thank you.
about, I don't hate it, I
I
dislike
know, I caught you.
the Christian concepts of making judgment on others, on who gets to go to heaven and who doesn't.
Heaven's here or hell is here. Why do they
What is that about? You know, you
Really?
talk about a Seventh-day Adventist, and which is a valid religion. I am very impressed. And yet that religion is less than 200 years old, and 200, not 2,000, and it was followed by a very minor group of Christians out of Baptist, Lutheran, whatever, and Catholic, and yet they would presume to know God's will. And well, it says here right in the book. Well, yeah, that's true. But that book was written by humans and then by political action in many different centuries, including Constantinople. And, so I quote from the Gospel of Thomas, because the Gospel of Thomas was when Thomas was studying with Christ when he was in India and became an Essene.
Neat.
And idea of Essene gospel as the primary way of treating one human being to another. And it has nothing, and if you look at the Lord's Prayer, the
I
Psalm,
love the Lord.
it's quite different from Greek interlinear translations of the time and what the Catholic and now Christian religions would say is the King James Version.
Can you say it?
What do you mean? The difference is?
Well, the true verse.
The shadow of death, as there's variation on what that means. And so the same thing is true in terms of the answer is not in the literal word.
Right.
The answer is how you feel about it inside yourself.
True
And
that.
so, well, it's written right here. It's right here. It's not outside you, it's inside you. And I taught comparative religion. It was titled Metaphysics out of the Natural Sciences at Harvard as a graduate course for 11 years.
Neat.
I became a biblical scholar when I learned Old Hebrew and Greek, looking for answers as a physicist. I didn't find them, by the way. But what I did do is find massive discrepancies from one belief system to another. And then I realized, when I started training Navy SEALs, that beliefs are not God-given truths. They're actually quite arbitrary as tools to use. And if you had been born in Pakistan, you would have been a Muslim, not a Christian. And so what is, in fact, most Muslims I've had the honor to meet practice their religion way more rigorously than any Christian I've ever seen. And the word hypocrite comes to mind. And so I'm calling it out as it is. And while you may or not like what I'm saying, what is true is the negativity inside yourself in disagreement. That's it. Okay, let me give you a typical example. I have a second story ledge where I'm going to put my arboretum on my home. And I put Christmas tree lights on the inside of that ledge so that from my home looking out, it was Christmassy looking.
Oh.
But somebody coming up my driveway could not see those lights. Now, are those lights real or not? Because one person does not see them, they don't exist, and yet I'm looking right at them from another point of view, and I see red, green, and orange and blue. Who's right?
It depends on the moment of the question that's in perspective. Yes.
We're both right, and that's because we have limited view. We're not God. And so to make judgment of saying, well, because you don't believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, you're not going to heaven.
Oh, yeah?
I doubting Thomas.
Oh, yeah, but I had to learn and figured that my heaven is made by me, and it's either here on earth, because I sure don't see the hell. Of course, I recognize it when it's in front of me, but I don't accept it. So it's all in the belief. It's all in the perspective, just like you're saying.
That's where the belief then becomes a tool, and if it's not self-serving to take you toward your purpose, you should discard it like you would an old pair of clothing. Right. If it's very hot outside, it may not be appropriate to wear a sweater. Now, I have also said in that same vein that I have a pair of bell-bottom pants I'm never going to throw away.
Right, me too.
I'll never fit in them again.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, 32-inch waist, and I'm now 36. And I'll never get down to 32, never. And with that said, at my age, never. But do you think I'm going to throw away that belief system? No, it represents something I'm very comfortable with. And while it may not be appropriate because I'm over in Iraq and thinking like a Christian might get me killed.
Right.
So, okay. So here we are with the idea that beliefs open certain doors and they close other ones. And so if you're a staunch Christian and two aliens walked in the door, the big question is, could you see them? That's in the movie What the Bleep, where they talk about the Indians on the shoreline could not see ships in the ocean because they had no concept of it. And it was the shaman, the individual that could think slightly outside the box, that was able to point out there's something out there and it's coming to shore. That's when everybody, oh, wow, look, notice. Yeah, notice that. I think that the elite have alien technology that they've had for more than 70 years. I can prove it. Well, I've done research, for the government, so I've seen something.
Well, right now you can get a swallower of any drink that you got because we're on our first break, okay? So, Doc, we'll be back in a few. Thank you, darling.
Open them up.
Back, we're here.
I am too. Are you there? It looks like I've lost you. I don't hear anything.
I unmuted and was talking, and it remuted because I have such a touchpad that it snuck up on me and crossed me out. How dare it? And it was a good spiel, too. A lot of that we're doing, though, it doesn't have to be in fear, Richard. You know this, because it's how we say it. I watch my verbiage because I'll look at the dog out back and I'll think, oh, poor dog. And I'm like, no, the dog isn't poor. It's precious. Because otherwise, I want to build a better later and not make it where something is a degradate, it denotes it. So we really do have to see how we communicate with ourselves and those things outside us.
That's why you have astrology and 12th house planets. And,
Start me, baby.
You can approach that problem. Internal landscape. There's lots of different ways of envisioning it in your mind's eye. The mind's eye is where it all happens. That is where the structuring of water and psyche is brought into matter. That's where it starts, right there.
Mhm,
And so you start with your internal landscape.
right.
And so one of the things I used to train SEALs was everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Everything leads to something better. Now, if you do that, what will happen next is it will place you in the moment of flow and wonder, of not having any expectations, but reveling in the mystery of what is about to happen. And that is when you have the integration with time, where your future timelines are working with your present and literally changing the cavitation of the ball that was created called the past. Memory, time is a duration of consciousness. It is the way you store memory. And the moment has a beginning, a middle part, and an end. And it's a duration. It's the way you group selective groups of information like we do memes. And once you realize that, at the end of the day, what you actually literally happened, whether it was good, bad, or ugly, was your as close as your consciousness will allow toward purpose. And whether you did it in a flow of sacred time or you did it kicking and screaming and fighting all the way, creating karma and lumps and bumps, is the thing that made you God's favored, your choice. You had a choice. And so what you're trying to do is integrate all of these different noises inside your body as a musical tune that allows you to what your purpose is here. By the way, here, physical plane, is where you go to be sick spiritually. It's not real. It's what you experience as real is your fever.
Interesting.
It's a way of looking at it. Doesn't mean it's true. It's a way of trying to see what's going on around you and how to integrate that into becoming something more than you are. And that is the journey.
Yeah, it's not always easy to recognize the differences because we want to take everything on personal. And that's where all the accumulated caca gets in the way, so nothing else will grow. And that's what I meant about the, I'm going to feel for the dog. And that takes away my energy to know that I should be feeling for myself, not the dog. Even though I have compassion, etc., but the dog's fine.
Compassion is something that was inside you.
Mm-hmm.
And not something you want people to recognize in you and how cootie that is, and I'll pay you an extra $1 tip for being such a good, that's crazy. It's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what you do, the labor, the actual physical involvement. And that's where the thought form is created.
Right.
That's where your past becomes a primary wave in time, and the future is arbitrary. There's timelines of singularity where you have different options of how this all plays out, and how this all plays out has to do with the way you're doing the present that creates a cavitation of the past. I have a metaphor on how that works, if you'd like. It's you have a drop of water, and it's falling from the sky, and it hits a big pool of water. Now, what happens next is predicated on how big a drop that was, how far it fell, will determine the waves going outward. The splash when it hits the water, and then the waves go out. Those waves going out are the future, and predicated on how big the drop was that fell, how big the secondary drop, because when the drop hits, another drop pops back up a little bit and falls back down again. But that drop is not a solid water. What that drop is the inward waves slapping each other and forming a thin ball of water around air or whatever medium it was falling in. And that's called a cavitation ball. And inside that ball, the air is a toroidal surface, a topological surface turning into itself, like a white hole becoming a black hole, curved space. Now, that is the primary wave in time. And if you can adjust your thought processes so that everything that you're doing is in this moment, you're not thinking about it, you're not conniving, you're not modifying. What you're doing is experiencing it. That's called sacred time, like lovemaking. It's timeless. And what happens next is your future having to do with the way the waves went outwardly, creating different timeline options, comes back to your present, trying to create a change in your past.
Neat.
And the metaphor on that past is that at the time I was doing Navy SEALs, didn't exist. They were called SEAL Corporation, which could have just, out of Amherst, could have just simply have been a seal on a jar.
Right.
I had no idea that SEAL had to do with a mammal. At the time I was doing it, I was in the moment of it, and the future then dictated how I'm behaving at this moment.
Right.
And that literally changed my past from being SEAL Corporation to Navy SEALs.
I bet they're busy these days.
That's a way of being. And that is the next evolution in consciousness. In the early years, I worked with biofeedback. I tried to train SEALs to control autonomic functions, heart rate, pulse, respiration, how to be interrogated, how to interrogate using neurolinguistics and be able to read body language and other kinds of communication that was going on that would be called nonverbal. And guess what happened? I became, today they call us super soldiers. Now, we weren't really. We were enhanced.
Right.
And today, 45 years later, instead of using biofeedback, because I've already done that work, is now I'm doing the same thing with specific neurotransmitter releases in my brain.
Huh. Do you do it with tones or word? I mean, how are you releasing it?
Yes, all of the above.
Okay.
Any way I can. A number 8 it works really good. You see stars.
Say it again. I missed that. I like stars.
It's full of stars.
What is? Repeat that. I was talking. Go ahead.
Well, I understand. I'm just messing with you in a sense.
That's okay.
And it's all about the joy
Right.
of that. Okay. That's where it all happens, is in that moment of bliss or love. You start with hierarchies of love, eros, philo, agape, telema. The telema, the thelema is the love of will, and that's your purpose. And so, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. That's Aleister Crowley. And what he's actually saying is you are always open to try to help someone else unless it deters you from your own path, in which case it is love under will. It is your own path. It's more important than anything. And while my path, like Christianity, might seem in conflict with someone else's, that part is the lights on that railing. It's God's will. And I don't see the big picture because I'm not God.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm not God, how dare me?
But labeling this stuff.
Only one I can make judgment on is myself. That I will. I'm constantly. That's why I'm Gospel of Thomas. I doubt everything that I know because, like Castaneda, knowledge is illusion.
Right.
It is the wisdom from knowledge that forms that temporary place called Doth. It's in the middle of the Sea of Karanzan. And it is a metaphorical place that missing Sephiroth, of the 10 Sephiroth, that are in the Kabbalah, and the Tree of Life Basically, it would be like you and I are playing follow the leader, and I run down a hill and you run down a hill, and I come to this roaring river, and without hesitation, I leap out into the middle of this sea of chaos. And under the water that you didn't see, it was a small stone that I lightly step on in my balance of going to the other side. And that's a temporary place. And that is knowledge through wisdom. And now it's temporary. And the metaphor is you're only there for a second. You don't hang out there. That place, if you hung out there, would be called a siddha, like being a psychic. The point is that you can have psychic abilities, but they are all distractions toward what is really important, the top chakra, Godhead, moving toward the light. And so it's a metaphor. And your attitude shapes all the water in your body. And I don't know anybody that has cancer that didn't start first with anger. The things are related. The emotional relationship of things is a higher order of the physical. And each of us is different in that regard. And that means what is good for you may not be good for me. And yet we're both doing God's will. And that's the part we need to always remember, that even though we're kicking and screaming and I don't want to do this, it doesn't matter. It's at the end of the day, the purpose is close to the intent of what actually happened. And when you don't quite actually happen, that's called intentionality and missing it by that much. And it didn't happen. And that didn't happen part is because it was not supposed to happen. Right. What actually happens is what is supposed to happen, and you have choice on how you choose to interface with that.
Right. So then that means that we have to see more things in as a respect of the, not just differences, but not judging how somebody's doing something because it's not the way you do it.
Well, there you go. That's the judgment part, and the doubting Thomas and the Gospels and the scenes and the original teachings of Christ. And so we are not God, but collectively we become archetypal. We become halfway. Right. The other half is going to require usually a guide with a helicopter.
Oh.
Well, there's no way you're going to be able to do it. Even if you had enlightenment, that's only halfway. And I know that because I am enlightened. I have been working with biofeedback and controlling autonomic functions for 45 years. I'm a meditator. I'm a satsangi. I go places people can't even comprehend, and that is only halfway to God. And here I am at the end of days trying to leave a footprint because, in fact, from a metaphorical point of view, I don't get out of here until you start doing what you're supposed to do. We, all of us, are part of the whole thing and somehow simply connected.
I love that part too.
Now, that's the teachings according to Garp. And from there...
Garp? Nanu? What? Who?
That's the teachings according to Garp. You know, the movie.
That was such a good movie.
Williams. Yeah, the mythology of it. And once you get the importance of the way you choose to look at something as critically important to its relationship to health, now you're getting the big picture on what time is and what time is not. It is not real. It is a term that was invented for quantum mechanics where everything is measured in space and time.
Mm-hmm.
But in a holographic system, we're no longer dealing with space and time, and we're dealing with information and its resolution, like the way your higher self talks to you. It talks to you in dreams and feelings, not objects and situations. And so how you felt about it is more important than what actually is happening in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you start your work in your inner landscape, and the part of you that now needs serious review. Actually, if imagination is reality, we are basically right now creating our own apocalypse, aliens, and that's how that works.
Well, I don't doubt that in the least, because it's been a training, it's been a programming, it's been...
Well, there you go. Mind control, TV. Yeah.
Entertainment, too, because we've become bored, because we've lost that creative spark of life. It's become so synthetic. I don't like it at all.
Well, I know where we're going. That's the problem. Is that the unique elite group, you can name them on one hand probably, are interested in controlling the masses like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much in to so much out. And there's too many people to do that, so they need to have an extinction protocol.
Mm-hmm.
The limit and make it more easily controllable. Once that's done, then we have little Borgs, bots, and transhumans. And that's where we're going. NASA is absolutely, accurately correct in stating there will be no such thing as a human being by the year 2050. And by 2025, half the world will be probably dead, and the other half in serious disarray with confusion, grid collapses, pandemics, and you can name the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. So then the best way to actually try to facilitate some kind of survival is not to really want to know it all either.
Knowing is not real. That's why Castaneda said
I love Castaneda.
that there was the tonal and the Nagual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Nagual was the unknowable, could only be experienced, and the tonal is illusion.
Mm-hmm.
What is known is illusion. Never let them see you sweat.
Well, in fact, yeah, I guess. So many you got to smile and laugh at it, because if we do make it a real thing, then it's going to take our energies and our consciousness away, and that just doesn't make sense to me. And
we have an opportunity here.
Okay.
And we start, for me, I've started with children. That, to me, our children are probably our single most important asset. It's not the timber. It's not the farm ground.
Right.
It's not, no, it's our children and the diversity of it. And so to have something like Common Core where we're trying to make all our children the same, why would we want to do that? I've watched autistic children. I'm a functioning savant. I'm actually rocking right now.
Me too.
I no longer drool like
I don't drool, but go ahead.
I hum a lot.
I love humming. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we are. Creepy. And let's give them some lithium, lock them down, or Prozac or whatever.
Right.
What I've watched a Down syndrome child, while considered a handicap and an ordeal for a family, in fact, that family is blessed because they're going to have a kind of love experience even beyond a beloved dog.
Mm-hmm.
And that, being taught that lesson by that dysfunctional child, there's nothing wrong with that child. I've watched autistic children literally do bedding plants better than a master gardener. And I've met Temple Grandin. There's nothing wrong with her. She is gifted.
Right. I get that drift totally.
Well, it's the way you choose to look at something.
Right.
The glass being half full as opposed to half empty. And when my half full glass fell over the table and broke, I looked down over the table and guess what? my glass was already half fixed. It's a metaphor of the way you choose to see what's happening. And if you be rigid on that, the next evolutionary mandate states man has a responsibility, not a right, a responsibility
Right.
for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. Whether they came from outside you, mind control, or they came from your creepy parents, pedophilia, gambling, drug addiction, whatever, the neurotic of being grown up and how you picked up from what they did, doesn't matter. If it doesn't match with where you're trying to go, you get rid of it. I can't get rid of it. Yes, you can. You just be mindful. That is the purpose of meditation, training the mind.
Okay, but
The
can
mind
I?
is supposed to be a tool. You know, your upper brain, what we normally associate with the mind and intelligence and all of that,
Mhm.
is really there to make all your beliefs true. I
Isn't that
wouldn't have
funny?
seen it if I hadn't believed it.
That's so
That's the way
true.
looking at it.
It's
And
really true.
your gut, your instinct.
All right, we're at the next break, sweetheart. And actually, somebody wants you to repeat when we get back your future engagement in March, please.
Money.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Richard, for all that information that I missed for the moment. But yes, if you would please, your March excursion again. Where are you going?
Yeah,
What you
it's,
doing?
Yeah, it's City of Hollywood at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, March 18th, 19th, and 20th, with Matt Stein and I, with premiere showings of 2 brand new movies about grid collapse in Santa Barbara, and how that happened and what happened next, with congressmen and other people replying on the event and how it affected daily life. It's time everybody wakes up to realize that none of you are prepared for any of this. And what Matt and I are going to do is an open to the public freebie on Friday, an all-day workshop. And then that night will be a premiere of 2 new movies out of Hollywood, Dark Start and Offline. And then Saturday, Matt does his all-dayer. And that night we'll have another premiere of the 2 movies. And then Sunday morning, I will be doing my part with the way I train Navy SEALs and how to think with the gut.
Way cool.
Instinct, working with instinct. And we are expecting a large crowd. That's why they're holding it at the Hollywood Forever. It is sponsored by the City of Hollywood and several of the movie studios that are going to be there to film people, because like Kerry Cassidy is going to be there doing a podcast on interviewing just individuals like yourself and why you would take such a workshop today.
I
And
used
the
to teach
diversity of
them.
responses. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It was fun. I missed the lecturing, but I'm lecturing 5 days a week here and bringing on beautiful people like you. I'm really proud and happy that this is going to happen.
Well, it's about time. I think everybody's waking up
Right,
and getting it. I am simply one voice in the wilderness
right.
trying to be like reason. I am not Will Rogers, but I'm going to try to give you a view from the country. And what I see is right and wrong with our country. And right now, like Jimmy Carter did a major interview in ARP magazine for old farts like me, and 3 months ago. And he said, just in simple words, Washington is for sale.
Oh, yeah,
And
the whole
you-
country is.
man, Hillary Clinton will probably actually be put into prison this year. She will probably not be allowed to run for president. The FBI, the director, will either see her in prison or he will resign. And he's already said that.
Yeah,
public.
well, a lot of people are stepping away from our health issues, you know what I mean?
Well, let's put it this way. her husband, Bill Clinton,
Ugh.
is the worst criminal to ever come out of Arkansas. And I have a federal judge saying that's 10 years older than me. They have a bridge there in Arkansas that's locked at both ends with NRAPs to take drugs across the border, and it's called the Clinton Bridge.
Nothing's a secret anymore. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
I love
Well,
this.
It gets downhill from there when you realize that actually every time you find a secret, it is another red herring of a series of red herrings in the layering of an onion. And even at my pay grade, I know that I most likely will never really know what happened. That's how awful it is. I don't have answers. I don't know where this is all going. I can only tell you that I know that I don't know, and I know that I probably will never know.
No, but you got at least the primary way to make it that it's at least yours to get through.
Everybody's got that. That's the internal landscape thing I'm talking about. All you have to do is go inside and see how you feel about something. That's where the real truth is. It's not in written words. It's your response to it.
Right.
And why you personally would find significance in this word, not that one. And that is how your future is directing your present and changing a moment as you experience it, and what is then encapsulated in the structure and memory of water.
That's so don't take it personally.
Well, yeah, you're doing it on a moment-to-moment basis, and you need that dialogue. That is what evolution of consciousness is all about.
Right. I mean, at one time, you remember they had where, these metaphysical stores were everywhere, trying to teach everybody the new age of spirit, when so much of the dialogue is actually in the ancient text. And when you know that neither is by anybody else but somebody's mind that put it there, it's all just little ingredients to the bigger puzzle. I love word magic.
There you go. Blue hairs and granolas. That's what we used to call them. Actually had my metaphysical bookstore in 1972 because the military wanted me to be in areas that you couldn't even in major public libraries, like the Seattle Public Library didn't have. Some of the books I was carrying by Wilhelm Reich and von Reichenbach.
Right.
Where am I going to get that health research? So health research has monographs on everything. And so what I was going to say to you is, that's why I had my metaphysical bookstore back then. And it is important to read as what you can, listen to what you can, and then cogitate on it inside, not what the truth is different for each of us. And that's where we have to understand that there's a bigger plan going on than the one you can fathom or comprehend in your mind's eye. If you could comprehend that in your mind's eye, you would be God. But you're not God because you can't. And that is what defines God, is that which cannot be known.
True. Okay.
So, I mean, it's like you have to realize the limitation of your own belief systems and the limitations that they create, and why I've watched holy men from India that are in the Torah. I'm going to go in a different direction here. In the Torah, if you do the literal translation, it will state that there are 50 living Christs on earth at any given time, and only 2 of them are for men. And that's the Torah, which talks about, the other 48 might be some master doing God's will in a cave up in the Himalayas, floating off the ground, levitating. No comprehension at all what that has to do with man or what he's doing for mankind. It's God's work. There are 2 of them. So once I did that with Gershom Scholem, I went out looking for those living Christs. I found one. It was Charan Singh, Charn Singh. He's dead now. The Gurundar Singh is close. There is a lineage. It goes back to 14th century and Paul Twitchell and Eckankar and all of it. And it had to do with Sant Mat. All paths are different. We all get there different ways. This is the way I did it. I started with Theosophy, taught at Rose Croix, became a Mason, and studied Aleister Crowley. And the next thing you know, I went out looking for a living master. I smoked pot with Pir Vilayat Khan. He's a fourth plane mystic up on Shaw Island. And San Juan.
Oh, what a trip.
No, not all. I'm just telling you, I met all these different people. And I finally met somebody that was a perfect saint. And how do you find a perfect saint? Because if they are a saint, by definition, they're not in conflict with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you recognize one? Well, he's a Param saint or a Satguru, where he's a writer, or somehow or another, the words, like John and some of the other apostles. There's a thing that comes through that you can see that this individual was inspired by something and somehow is touching a part of you. That's where the action is. Not his words, not the church changing one word to another like charity into love.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
But the fact that somehow charity resonated something inside you that brought you to, I don't know, Seventh-day Adventist or whatever, washing your feet. I'm going to say that it isn't what you do, but how you do it that gets you closer to the Lord.
How you feel that you're doing it.
Well, spirituality, not what you do, but how you do it. The intensity or quality of that action. And that is sacred time in the way the encapsulation of your past got encapsulated in a memory ball of intent.
Neat.
And that is where psyche is brought into matter. Now, I'm speaking on a whole bunch of levels for all those different people from this place to that in terms of how they're going to visualize in their mind's eye. Because it's not my words that make it real. What makes it real is when you see it in your own mind's eye. That's where reality occurs. Physics, which I'm a high priest of, doesn't have the answers. I don't know of any law in physics that's lasted longer than 20 years. The reason quantum mechanics and space-time don't work for us today is because we now have realized that there's something more going on dimensional levels outside space-time.
Right.
Extrasensory perception, instinct, and the relationship of one timeline to another.
Realm.
It isn't. We're in a place now where we need to be more mindful of what is going on.
Can I say something here?
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of saying mindful, because I don't want my mindful, I want to be mind conscious. I want to know that the dialogue and the input that is being placed there is the basic, that it's the best to build on, because we are doing our future and all that too. And so to me, that's where we have to also be mind conscious of what words we use that are also creating, right?
Mindful in the sense I use the slang term of it, being mindful is that you're paying attention to why you are or are not doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Mindful. You're watching yourself. They call that in the Bible witnessing.
Okay, so you're recognizing something too,
and
right?
mindful or witnessing your behavior and how it is precipitating into the physical world.
Neat. Okay.
That's good luck with that, by the way.
Yeah, get a grip. Right?
Well, you get caught up. There's all kinds of survival circuits, ego, whatever that can. Ego is not a bad emotion. It's actually survival. And that's what distinguishes me from you. Mm-hmm. But actually, we are, I am you and you are me and I am the walrus. And so that is Well, there you go.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a personal question here, Richard.
Yeah.
When you were talking about who we read and who we follow and who we look for. Now, I've come and read many books. I lived in metaphysical and old bookstores. So I get the drift of the mechanics behind it. But the one, for some reason, I couldn't read, and I even read Alistair and all that, I just didn't fall for it. But Steiner, what kind of just as a kind of catalog, why couldn't I do that when I could go through the Seals of Moses, Blavatsky, the whole 9 yards, but not Steiner?
Oh, it's Swiss. That's a good point. I'm just kidding, Swiss. Swiss. Rudolf Steiner was, basically German. I mean, he's Der Wollen Deutsche bleiben. And so there is a rigor or behind, that associates with that kind of militancy of behavior in education. My great-grandfather was his lodge master, and that's one of the reasons why I'm in agriculture.
Well, Richard, it took me over. My body would shake. It was completely in a different kind of realm, Oh, I love gardening.
I always had problems with Richard Albert. When he started calling him, I knew him before he called himself Ram Dass. Okay. And, of course, I love his newest book, Still Here. Yeah, that's the way that works, man. And Timothy Leary, I don't know, man. Smile, space migration, intelligence increase, longevity extension, how to leave orbit. That's what we're talking about. I'm speaking in metaphor. Leary became a cult icon, and as such, offers distraction and decoherence. That's why quantum mechanics doesn't work, because of the uncertainty principle. The more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. And that's what that quantum space-time measurement direction leads you in physics. You can only go so far with it, and then the doors are closed.
Right.
So if you're looking for something more, you're going to have a model that allows that as part of its solutions.
Interesting.
And so a hologram is like the way information collapses down into or out of itself. And with that, there is an extremely important a theorem in information theory that says if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it.
Okay, so that would be not the manipulation, but the recognition or use of the how do you say it? Toroidal?
It'd be the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, in the relationship of sound to words.
Neat. I'll have to see what I can find on that.
Well,
because I know that's how all life works.
Sefer Yetzirah, okay. Book of Formation. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the Bibles that, guess what? Most people don't even bother to have included in their Old Testament. The Book of Formation.
Because it's giving you power, man. They don't want to step.
Well, it was a technology, sound and dance movement, like ghost dance and whirling dervish, or can change space-time. And when you select and correctly pronounce as sound the words of God, Yod He Vav He, now something else happens.
Well, I bet you'd have to go through an octave scale like you would if you're trying to connect Earth and as above, so below, because each chakra, I'm sure, has a different tonal to it too, right?
Well, that's right. You that in magic systems, Crowley, they call that middle pillar exercise, where you fine-tuned each chakra vibe so that they're working in concert with each other. And when you talk about non-local heart, where you have different layers of love, Eros, Philo, Agape, Telemach. Actually, if you go into the older books like the Upanishads, you will discover that, in fact, they talk about the Shabd, SHABD, the sound current, the sound at the end of the rainbow, sung by Gaia, the circuit. And there it is, sound current, the lost chord, the idea that you hear something in your right ear, and that sound, in Voice of the Silence, will describe what you hear, will determine where you are spiritually. That means you now have a roadmap using sound on where you are spiritually.
Oh, that's interesting, because I've been getting a lot of that lately.
Getting a lot of what?
The toning in the ear.
You mean you got tinnitus and they're turning into
No, honey, it's not tinnitus. No.
I'm just kidding you, Lona. I'm just...
Not swimmer's ear either, because it's been frozen around here, man. Oh.
How did they put it in Monty Python? Oh, yeah. Come back, I can still bite.
Oh, I know. That's one of our promos. Yeah.
Well, then that's right. And you're getting the metaphor. And the giggling part allows the softness of connecting the two paths to God. In the Tree of Life, in the male and female parts that go up to Kether is either the lovers or the hermit. Oh. You do it androgynously, internally, or you have an external reflection into the external world, masculine and feminine. And the path that connects the two of them is humor. And that goes through the sea of Qurans and chaos. That's how you do it. You laugh your way through it. You can't take any of this real because this is your fever.
Oh, that's such a fact. I don't disagree whatsoever. Nope.
Yeah. That's why we take drugs. You know, Timothy Leary wrote a really good book on magic. It was called The Varieties of Psychedelic Experience, and he uses the Bordeaux Thadal, where he talks about set and setting. And the thing is, he says in that book, there were 4 reasons why the Buddhists got high, and only one of them was for recreation and escape.
Well, I can agree with that.
Well, I'm not talking about taking meds so you can try and drop out and fall in or whatever. So much for free love.
Oh, well, it's an earth thing to me, hon. No matter what.
That's why they had the neo-pagan movement and Stranger in a Strange Land. That's why there is this movement of neo-pagan. Just like other kinds of movements where you're trying to get back to self.
Well, I get so, like you said, overwhelmed or litigated with all these words that people use and all these clarifications, and you got to catalog it and define it. And I'm like, waste of my time.
It is, but not for some. For others, it is. That, again, is why you constantly question what you believe. Doubting Thomas as part of the disciples. And let me say further on that. If you don't question everything that I think I know. Right. Every day it changes. Nibiru, Planet 9, whatever. I mean, that's every day it's it's a new car.
Yeah, right.
Something else, and we're all rushing toward that.
Well, it's all in consideration, right?
Yeah, well, Kmart.
Blue light special.
It's all crazy. And about consumerism and the idea of planned obsolescence. Marketing.
Well, why plan? Oh, yeah. I know it's all a lie. That's what ticks me off the most is these parasites have literally gotten away with this shit.
Well, you ought to see Black Friday. Here we are with the day after Christmas, and people are rushing out. I watched this one woman fighting with another woman, changing fists. Police came in and they handcuffed her, and she would yet not let go of that $17 item from China.
Well, then what do you think the lithium degree was in that, or dosage? I mean,
they're going to do that with, the new direction in, what is that called? Where you deploy a drug in your body will probably be these vaporizers. And they'll put, that's how they'll do
chemtrails. You should have seen them out there this year. It was ugly.
You ought to see what your aluminum and barium oxide panels are showing in your blood. And realize that all of that is acting as a desiccant, which means you are now microdehydrated, and that water is how you take psyche into matter. They are messing with your ability to change your reality.
And because of the magnetism, too, isn't it?
Well, there's all kinds of dances at different levels. It starts
right. That was a good allegory there. That was great.
Just like a fractal.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and Smith brought Julia or May pattern, and here we are at the end of days with realization of net or nil. I know I did.
Well,
You
I can.
get both barrels. There it is. And I can tell you that none of what we're seeing right now with the banking
Mhm.
and the missing money and the electronic dollar and the ISIS beheading people. Look, children, over here. They're killing everybody. Look, children, over there. They're, you know, right now, Gaza had a nuclear weapon deployed just less than a week ago.
Really?
Yeah, Gaza and Yemen. They're doing it. They're using tactical nukes. It is a neutron fullerene fusion bomb. And I've got pictures
Ouch.
of Arnold Schwarzenegger looking at the target when he was governor and down visiting the National Ignition Facility in Livermore. And there it is. What it is a C-60 buckyball that they inject deuterium in the center of it and then ignite it using a teleportation laser from Lockheed. And I watched a 617-foot steel beam vaporize as it fell to the ground in free fall. And that is not spent fuel from an aircraft or a thermite. There's only one thing in the universe that will vaporize steel like that, and that's a plasma. And so there it is. We've been lied to. The Pentagon has already come out and said that it was hit with a missile. And yet my in-laws would suggest that that's all a bunch of BS. I worked at the airline at the United and da-da-da-da-da. That's not true at all. What's true is that everybody is buying into these distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer and goals are not out there. They're in there, inside you.
Right.
And that's where the inspiration is for your own. And I'm going to guess that there are as many different religions out there, and I'm speaking to Bible Belt now, there are as many different religions as there are human beings, that each of us have a different way that we approach and merge with God.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're all going to do it. Not some of us and not others. It doesn't work like that because we are the collective unconscious. Now, if you want a different metaphor, I will say that we have been invaded by something.
Parasites.
Well, the fourth genome in your blood type, where did it come from?
I have
Alien.
no clue.
Well, that means the war for Earth could be metaphorically going on inside each of us.
Well, there is supposedly a outer space war going on physically.
Well, you mean Star Wars. Yeah, well, Carol Rosen is a local friend here that I've gotten to know on the space treaty and things like that. And she had worked with von Braun. I never met von Braun. I've met other German Nazi scientists that were brought in. And let me say that that's creepy. The United States is the worst hoodlum and bully the world's ever known.
Mm.
I don't, again, like I said about Burns, Oregon, when Eamon Bundy said, I want this land given back to the whites. And the Paiute came out and publicly said, stand in line.
Yeah, way cool. Hey, it's about flipping time.
Put things in a better perspective, the way the whole thing plays. And Aaron Bundy should probably pack up now and go home because he has done what his real intent was to do in bringing all of this out to the public's eyeball.
Yeah, well, they're claiming it to be some kind of will from God, okay, Richard? And that really kind of set me back different sideways.
Yeah, well, that's John Belushi, in the Blues Brothers. Get a grip.
All the time, honey.
I don't believe any of it anymore.
I know, right?
It's all
somebody else's illusion. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
No, you're not. Sorry. No. We all just, I want everybody to have a smile and a warm fuzzy. I even wrote a song, and I just wish I knew somebody who could put it to music for me. And it's called It Is What It Is, Whatever. And that's what we have to really kind of just relocate our minds to. Because once you place energy on any kind of occurrence, situation, or momentum of feelings, it can go sideways. And then,
Yeah, that's Doris Day. And K Sarah Sarah.
Yeah, right? Okay, darling. We'll be right back. Like it or not, however it goes, a moment is occurring, and we're letting our minds go where we've been taught to believe as fact. And most facts aren't evident except in our mind. So how do we placate and change, or at least, I'm not here to change anybody's ideals about what's going on. I can only state by what I have lived and experienced. So, is there a question in there somewhere?
Probably. I'm not going to
Maybe a movie. What?
Yeah. What would you like to know, Mona? From my perspective, what is it really important to you that I might be able to respond?
Well, it's like what the phonics were that you were stating, and all the different dialogues that's been changing about the awarenesses of the altering realms, realities, dimensions, fractal string, vibrations, and, like you said, it won't become unless you believe.
Idiomatic expressions and the idea of memes and the way urban myths categorize things differently from the past, the present, and the future. That's kind of a place that I'm now beginning to understand more, if you catch my drift.
Mm-hmm, but I'm a comprehensible kind of person.
Well, it isn't my words.
Mm-hmm.
Gregory Bateson, a teacher of mine, once said, what is your paradigm but to serve your paradigm? What is your metaphor but to serve your paradigm?
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm going to get it right. Here it is. What is your metaphor but to serve your paradox? Now, the way I would say it, what is your metaphor to serve your paradox?
That's a heck of a stability role of accountability.
That is the way the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, and the relationship of mind's eye. As I'm understanding Hermetic Kabbalism and Merkaba mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I'm constantly testing everything that I do know and finding error. Constantly testing and finding error. In other words, I'm constantly changing my subtle energies toward the true. And it is not about getting to the door, like Simon says, you can go halfway through the door. It's not about a goal. It's about the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And how you relate to that in the different layers of love, or going to the next octave, to the different layers of bliss. In Upanishads, those are called jhana states, or cosmic states of cosmic consciousness, different levels or hierarchies of the experience. And then the final next octave above that is what the Quaker calls joy. The part that you would be doing even if there was no reward or no acknowledgement. You're just doing it for the fact that it's something you love to do. You live to do. You joy to do. Seeking your joy.
Oh, it was so interesting. I had a friend, and he had this. Now, somebody tells me it's just a small guitar, but he called it a ukulele, and he had a music store. So you might have known that it was, but anyway. And he said, I'd like a cover for this because I do a lot of hand stitching because I won't use a machine, but I sew tote bags, things like that. So this was my first ever project to make a case for a guitar, right?
A ukulele.
Exactly. It was the most perfect, unperfect creation ever because I really didn't put stipulations on it.
So there's a guy named Steve Gaskins. You're familiar with him as The Farm in Tennessee. But before that, he wrote a book when he was teaching at Berkeley called Monday Night Class. And what he did is he went up to the blackboard and he drew a circle up on the blackboard. And then he said, it may not be a perfect circle, but it is a perfect whatever it is. Steve Gaskins.
Well, when you said that, I was thinking about how I've taken a lot of classes in the psyche of just psychology, things like that. And it would be, we would put what we want within that barrier and learn what boundaries are and that it's okay to have boundaries and to be safe and put outside that circle all the things you don't want, just to recognize who you really are and what you feel about certain things. And it'll change. I mean, it's never going to say, sentiment, unless you don't look for it. But we have the power to recognize these ways and means of the creation of ourselves. It's really not.
So, Voice of Reason and Voice of Coyote. I discussed that.
Coyote.
Well, it turns out, when you're inside the box, you're safe and you don't have nervous feelings. You pretty much think you have control of everything. By the way, control is a fantasy. And then Voice of Coyote would suggest step outside the box, do something naughty to
get hurt.
Yeah. And guess what? They're the same voice.
Interesting.
If the only time you change is when you're stepping outside the box and everything in moderation, you balance in and out with Voice of Reason and Voice of Coyote. And this is what Sun Bearer wrote a book on called Walk in Balance.
I love Sun Bearer.
Well, they settled up near Spokane. He came when he was first doing his journey in the early 70s. He came to the university where I was teaching and actually taught a couple classes in my course that I was teaching.
He was actually a very intelligent physicist. He searched out the answers. He said how we were going to destroy this planet.
Chippewa, there you are, migrant. Or he came out of Arizona.
Well, he did it scientifically. The book was called Bright Dawn, Dark Day. And it was just one of the most outstanding, where all the black oil takes up so much oxygen, and we need for each individual human to have 12 adult trees to grow to make our oxygen and a healthy exchange in existence. He was a bright man. I'm glad you got to spend time with him.
Well, it was in the early 70s. Yeah, I was actually searching all, trying to find answers. And I never found answers out there. The only time I ever made discovery was going inside. And then the relationship of how I choose to assimilate it by doing it in ritual form, which is, in fact, ritual is the celebration of a myth. And so it is the only way you can assimilate an experience. If you just take drugs out of set and setting, you get high, and at the end of the day, the whole trip is sort of kind of meaningless unless it was a bad trip and you learn some lessons. But organizing the experience so that you're able to assimilate it into the body of your current knowledge base is essential. That's why you do rituals. And we all have rituals. How about those little tiny ones that you play with yourself that you don't even notice, like when you flush the toilet, but then you have to put your toothpaste on your toothbrush before the water clears. Those little games we play,
Mm-hmm.
those are what determine our behavior for the day, including addiction, like gambling, spousal abuse, and other kinds of non-site selective molecules in the brain. I've been doing research in that area called a PGO waves in the occipital region of the cerebral cortex. It is different than directional alpha and the way we're doing it. Now, that's work I did 45 years ago. What I'm doing today is trying to control the actual release of 8 different neurotransmitters in my body, like a concert or a song.
Neat.
Now, the chill, that that chill that goes up and down your spine,
Mhm.
that is dimethyltryptamine being released. That is what that feels like when you release it. And you'll notice every single one of you can do that at will just by thinking about it. Now, what would happen if you practice that 2 hours a day for the next 10 years? And that's what I've been doing. And I can tell you what the different ones feel like. Each of us, like biofeedback, it's different. How you raise your heart rate, pulse, or respiration, or change the temperature in your hands, plus or minus 8 degrees. You can raise or lower your body temperature by 8 degrees external, just with circulation.
Mhm.
And that was one of the tools that saved my ass when I was
Wasn't
in
that posture, though, too? Wouldn't it be? I mean, how do you really get your body so prepared to be able to do that circulation? You'd have to relax, too. I mean, is there other
Well,
processes?
that's okay. So to raise your temperature is a passive visualization, whereas to lower the temperature is an active one. And that's where you start with meditation, in concentration and meditation. And that's how you raise and lower temperature in your body. And so you can feel the sun on your hands, and you can just feel the heat. You can feel it from the sun. You see the sun up above, and you can see the yellow rays coming down and hitting your body. That's a passive thing that will relieve migraine tension just in smooth muscle in the neck. Now, I mean, you can do all of this with your mind's eye.
Cool.
And what I'm doing now is at the same level of that, only finer tuning with neurotransmitter releases like the chill. That chill, for example, is in a visible light region going up and down the spine. Sri Aurobindo or Gopai Krishna. And I'm going to say this, at the base of that, if you do your back and alignment straight correctly, you can stimulate the pineal gland, which is calcified. That is a primary gland to regulate and cause body changes with seasonal changes and the amount of light that you're getting during the day and night. And the bottom line is it's atrophied because we no longer have natural light. We're all using artificial.
Right.
Well, no, okay, so it's okay. It is easily decalcified. And what that does is it sets up a resonant cavity oscillation in the neural cavity that it's next to and the thalamus that's on the other side. And now you have a tool that can regenerate nerve tissue rather than just glial cell. And that's Robert O. Becker and myself in a paper we wrote. Now let's go to another level on that. That means that aging processes are reversible.
Cool.
Let me go there on that. There is a writer called Ward Dean. He's a Surgeon General for the Marine Corps. And he has written a book called Biological Aging Mechanisms, Clinical Approach. And what he did is he went out to study how they measure aging processes at each different university across the world. And they're all different. There's all these different ones. And the conclusion at the end of his book is that always we measure aging processes, each individual one is reversible, just like controlling a polygraph, where you have 6 different things you're trying to control at the same time to pass a polygraph test, which is a trainable thing that I did with field interrogation. And so I'm here to tell you that the mind and the mind's eye is a tool that you can use to change this movie.
Mm.
And time is a simple byproduct. And when I say that, one of the things I trained SEALs in power tools was how to change their perception of time with breath control so that their boxing became paranormal. They were experiencing the movements of Tai Chi, and yet they were doing Hung Gao. This is all of our divine right. And that is what we are doing is missing the forest through the trees and going internal and finding our truth there.
Right. I did. Yep. That's one reason why I quit teaching school, because they weren't letting the children have that.
Well, that's Common Core and teaching
Well,
them.
this was back in the early 80s, Richard. This wasn't normal now, but it was the beginning of it. I'm
going to say that in the 70s, when I was in research, it was blue sky. We had no idea where we were going. It was still funded. Today, in the 80s, it all changed in the 80s, where if it did not have application, it wasn't funded. They had no interest in funding anything for the advancement of sciences in the 80s. From the 80s on, it was no longer about the advancement of technology for mankind, because we already had advanced technologies. What we are now doing is controlling the masses. And what they're doing with geoengineering, if you want a metaphor, is with bioAPIs. These are site-selective molecules that will have a memory of where to go once they're ingested in your body. And by the way, the aerosols they're using now, you don't have to breathe it. All it does is falls through your body from the top of your head, and wherever it touches your body, just goes right straight directly to the organs. It gets better. It's done with intent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm going to suggest that we've been invaded by something.
No doubt.
The war for Earth is not like any other war that we've ever fought before in that sense of it. And that's why we have a responsibility for the thoughts we choose to entertain.
Agree.
It doesn't matter where they came from. Whether it came from my parents, my inner neurotic person, or not. You had a question. There's a woman that wants to talk about dreams.
Yeah, there was a question. So if you have any inclination on how to...
I'll give her a direction. My mentor, Dr. Stanley Krippner, worked at Maimonides Dream Labs and wrote the very important book, Dream Telepathy. His latest one is on Rolling Thunder. But Dr. Stanley Krippner has been my mentor since 1970. And the most important thing to remember about Dreamscape and the idea of invading dreams to control behavior and all of that is, of course, they're going to try to do that. Like a dog licking its genitals. Why does it do that? Because it can. That would be the first thing in any technology, is to use it first as a weapon of advantage of one person over another before it's even used for anything further. And so the important thing to remember about dreams is that dreams are not about what happened in the dream. Bad things, she calls it, bad doing things. It's not about things. It's about how you feel about doing things.
Mm-hmm. That's really true.
So it's a higher octave, how your higher self is communicating to consciousness as a resolution of the hologram. You have a physical plane, that's your things. The higher self in dreams is talking to you about how you feel about it.
So we have to give that more validity.
Oh, well, the Hopi do, and the Aborigines, they'll say that dream time is more real than consciousness.
Oh, I don't doubt that part, but I meant the validity of how we...
Why you do it for 8 hours. And there's a lot of things that happen there, including time travel. They call it astral projection. Phenomena occurs where you leave your body.
Right.
There are several out of the Upanishads, several different ways you leave your body. There is spirit and soul, the stag and the unicorn in matter, the soul and spirit within matter. The stag and the unicorn in the forest go. There is the immortal and mortal part of self. And what you're dealing with now is something that is outside space-time, that is interlinking the moment, the now, the mortal part of the immortal part of self. And what you're trying to do is integrate these two things as one and the same, so that you meet your angel and your son on the mount, and you have, the Holy Spirit. The part that is the angel is literally the higher self. And for you, Mona, it would probably be a man. And that would be the kind of boyfriend or husband that you might choose, is someone that most reflected that inner part of your masculine part of self. And that's why it's called the hermit and the lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Lovers is where you do it with an external reflection, and the hermit is when you do it androgynously. It's a metaphor, again, in the way you approach union.
Well, that's rather interesting, because Gemini's my second house, and I don't get along with Virgo very well at all.
I'm a little bit of this and a little bit
That's
of that.
right. Sugar and spice and everything nice, plus puppy dog. No, pardon me.
Bad robot. And
I robot. No.
well, I got to have fun with this, because you can't be serious about any of this. You have to be more precise here.
Well, it just depends on your vision, how much your vision is.
There you go. And so you want to pick something that's beyond yourself. That star out there that you probably, again, like the door, will never get to. It is the journey to the door. Simon says you can go halfway to the door. And
I saw my door once, Richard. I was doing Native American elder medicine man ceremony. And here I'm right at my door, and there's a rainbow underneath shining through, but I couldn't get through that door. But it was a blessed event because it was on a burial ground, and all kinds of other things like that happened. But those are the cherished moments that I'm kind of thankful you said that, we're not supposed
that
to.
That is what we call sacred time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've had a lot of sacred time.
There you go. And you should be writing about it, because that's where the language occurs in how you talk to yourself.
Oh, I'm fine with it.
It's critical. And each of us does it slightly differently.
Well, they're great adventures, and I learn from what other people see that is their opinion. Because I don't look at myself the same way as others see me,
There you are, the glass darkly, through the eyes of another.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the shaman does in that sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been accused of many things, dear sir. Because that's
Have
what we're
I
all
worn
doing.
you out, Mona?
Hmm?
I don't mean to do that. I'm pretty driven now
Oh, I
in
love
my
what
own
you do.
visions of how I'm going to do it for myself. I'm getting it now. And
But
I'm
see,
trying
you
to-
also see the outcome, Richard, that there benefits it all. Because you are in joy of your creating and organizing and doing all that. So it's bettermenting all of it, not just you. Because your heart's really intended here. I see the beauty of that.
and there you are as a rabid dog. What do you call yourself? Feral woman, feral hippie.
Oh, no, Mike Ringley
Yeah.
named me that. I didn't call me that. Mike Ringley did.
That's cool. They call me nuts. Or Al, or late to dinner. I don't know.
Yeah, don't do that, man.
Yeah.
But
Not
we
in
can
public.
acclimate all this, can't we? We can transgress all this because it is just the state of
We
mind
already
of the
are.
harmonic.
That's the whole part of it. Every single one of us that's listening right now has already started that process. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's where it's at. That place.
Yeah, it's a color green, man. Some little colored hairs,
Well,
That's been
color,
fun.
is associated with feelings. Like you feel anger with red, and you feel brightness with yellow, when you feel peace and calm and nurturing with blue and green?
Well, I see that as a pretty non-conscious individual to a degree. Yes, I didn't like my Dolly deck of tarot cards because there was too much red in it. So I had to pass them on.
You were using the Crowley deck. You should have switched over
No,
to
I read through the whole Crowley thing. I took about a year and a half and did the whole Crowley thing. And I'm like, this is just not right. So
Well, that was Frida Harris. That was not Aleister Crowley. But you get
okay. Mm-hmm. It was a great time in my life, though. I've always seen everything as a lesson of learning to acclimate.
So I have a book of tarot going to press. It's ready for press right now. It's called Pantheon, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living.
Neat. And I did place all those on my Facebook wall and whatnot. But go to Richard Allen Miller Facebook and you can get all this other information. Thank you, my darling.
You bet. My pleasure.
Later.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.